Night shift intake. The night shift didn't feel wrong at first. It just felt thinner, like something important was missing from the edges of it. I signed in at 10:57 p.m., 3 minutes before my shift officially started, and the front desk didn't even look up. Normally, there was at least a nod, some acknowledgement that another body had arrived to carry the weight. Tonight, the receptionist was staring at her screen like it was waiting for her to make the first move. I checked the board. 23 patients, only 2 nurses active in ER, no attending backup until morning. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was how quiet it felt with that many people inside the building. Hospitals aren't supposed to be quiet. There's always something. Monitors beeping, someone arguing, a cart rattling over tile. Tonight, the sounds were there but distant, like they were happening in a different building entirely. Even my footsteps felt muted, absorbed by the floor, before they could echo. Anything I should know? I asked one of the nurses. She hesitated. Not long, just enough to notice. Nothing official, she said. Just weird pacing tonight. I didn't ask her to explain. I've learned that people say more when you let them stop talking on their own. The first patient I saw was routine. Minor chest pain, anxiety-driven, vitals stable. He kept apologizing for coming in. That was normal. What wasn't normal was how often he glanced at the door behind me, like he expected someone else to walk in. Are you expecting someone? I asked. He blinked, like he hadn't realized he was doing it. No. Just thought I heard something. I listened. Nothing. I discharged with instructions and moved on. Room 3 was empty when it shouldn't have been. The chart said occupied. I checked the hallway. No movement. No nurse transferring. The bed was still warm. Sheets slightly disturbed, like someone had just stood up and left without telling anyone. I stepped back into the corridor. Where's the patient from room 3? The second nurse looked up from her station, confused. He's still there, isn't he? No. She frowned, stood, walked past me, and checked herself. The pause that followed was longer this time. That's not possible, she said quietly. But she didn't call security. She didn't panic. She just walked back to her station and started typing faster, like correcting the record would fix what had already happened. Another patient arrived while we were still processing that. Walk-in, mid-30s, fever, agitation, mild confusion according to intake. I glanced at the chart and something about the handwriting caught my attention, rushed uneven, like it had been written mid-interruption. Put him in 5, I said. The nurse didn't respond right away. 5's already prepped, she said eventually, but her tone didn't match the words. It sounded like she was repeating something she'd been told earlier, not something she had just confirmed. I moved toward the room anyway. As I passed the waiting area, I noticed something else. People weren't talking. Not to each other, not on their phones. They were just sitting, spaced out in their chairs, looking forward or slightly down, like they were all listening to something I couldn't hear. I slowed down without meaning to. One of them turned their head as I passed. The movement was smooth, deliberate. Their eyes followed me a second too long. Then they looked away. Room 5 was closed. Not unusual. But the light inside was off, and I was sure it had been on when I walked past it earlier. I reached for the handle. For a second, I just stood there, listening again to that same absence of sound, that same strange quiet pressing in from all sides. Then I opened the door. The first patient. The man in room 5 didn't look sick at first glance. He looked paused. He was sitting upright on the bed, hands resting flat on his thighs, eyes fixed on the far wall like he was waiting for it to respond. The overhead light flickered once, then steadied, but he didn't react to it. Most patients do. Even small disruptions pull their attention. His didn't shift. "Sir," I said, stepping inside. No response. I moved closer, watching for the usual cues: breathing rate, skin tone, posture. His chest rose and fell normally. No visible tremor, no immediate distress. But there was a delay in everything. Even the air around him felt slow, like the room itself was lagging behind the rest of the hospital. I checked his chart. No name yet. Just intake notes. Fever, disorientation, brought in by a passerby who didn't stay. "Can you hear me?" I asked. His eyes moved. Not toward me, not exactly. Just shifted. Like something inside him had acknowledged the sound, but hadn't decided what to do with it yet. I reached for his wrist to check his pulse. The moment I touched him, he flinched, not away, but late. Like the signal had taken too long to reach him. His head turned toward me slowly, eyes locking onto mine with a focus that felt too precise. "Do you know where you are?" I asked. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Then, after a pause that stretched longer than it should have, he said, "Yes." One word. Perfectly clear. No slurring, no confusion. "Where?" I asked. Another delay. His eyes didn't leave mine. "Inside," he said. It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't an answer. I checked his temperature. 102.7. High, but not enough to explain the disconnect. I moved to examine his pupils. They reacted to light, but again, late. Everything about him was just slightly out of sync. "Any pain?" I asked. He didn't respond. "Headache? Nausea?" Still nothing. Then, without warning, he smiled. It wasn't wide. It wasn't aggressive. It was small, controlled, and completely out of place. Like he had just remembered something he wasn't supposed to know yet. "Sir," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I need you to stay calm." His head tilted a few degrees to the side. Then he stood up. Not quickly, not suddenly. Just stood. Smooth, deliberate, like he had already decided to do it before I even spoke. "Please sit back down," I said. He didn't. He took one step toward me. Then stopped. We were less than a meter apart now. I could see the fine details. Dryness at the corners of his mouth. A faint tremor in his left hand. The way his eyes didn't blink as often as they should. "Sir," I said again, louder this time. That's when the shift happened. It wasn't gradual. 1 second he was still. The next his entire body moved forward with force that didn't match anything I'd seen in a patient before. No hesitation, no build-up, just instant, full commitment. He grabbed my coat. I stumbled back, hitting the edge of the bed. His grip tightened, fingers digging in like he was trying to anchor himself to me. "Security!" I shouted. He didn't speak, didn't shout, didn't make any sound at all. His jaw moved slightly, like he was trying to form words and had forgotten how. 2 guards rushed in within seconds. They pulled him off me, but it took both of them to get his arms restrained. He fought them, not wildly, not unpredictably, but with a kind of directive force. Every movement had intent. He wasn't lashing out. He was choosing where to apply pressure. "Hold him down," one of them said. They forced him onto the bed, strapping his wrists. Even then, he didn't struggle the way you'd expect. No screaming, no panic, just resistance. Controlled, steady, like he was testing their limits rather than trying to escape. I stepped back, catching my breath, heart still racing faster than it should have. "Get restraints on his legs," I said, "and call for a full neuro-eval." The nurse hesitated at the doorway. "Doctor, there are 2 more like this." I looked at her. "Where?" She swallowed. "Different rooms." I turned back to the man on the bed. He had stopped moving. Completely. His head turned slightly. Eyes tracking me again, locking in with that same unnatural focus. And then, very quietly, he smiled again, not confused, not afraid, like he understood something I didn't. I pulled the chart closer and started writing. Time of onset, symptoms, behavior. But my hand slowed as I tried to describe what I had just seen, because none of it fit. This wasn't agitation. This wasn't neurological damage. This was something else. And whatever it wasn't random. It was deliberate. Patterns in the ward. It stopped being an isolated case the moment I saw the second chart. I didn't go looking for it. It found me in the stack of routine updates, labs, vitals, intake notes, buried under normal cases that suddenly felt like camouflage. Same fever range. Same delayed responses. Same vague wording from intake. Uncooperative, disoriented, unusual effect. Different rooms. Different times. Same pattern. Who triaged these? I asked, sliding the charts across the desk. The nurse glanced over, then back at her screen. Split intake. Why? They're not random. She frowned. like she didn't want to agree yet. We see clusters sometimes. Not like this, I said. Look at the timestamps. She leaned closer. Admission spaced out just enough to look unrelated. 40 minutes, then 50, then just over an hour. But the onset notes were tighter. Symptoms escalating within minutes of each other across separate wards. Coincidence, she said, but it sounded weaker now. Then explained why they're all on the same floor. That got her attention. We pulled up the internal map. Rooms scattered across ER overflow and short stay, but all within a tight radius around the central corridor. Close enough to share airflow. Close enough to hear each other. Close enough to react. Security said the guy in 5 didn't scream, she said. He didn't. Same with the one in 7. Tried to bite a guard. No warning, no noise. I felt something shift in my chest. Not panic. Recognition. Show me 7. Room 7 smelled like antiseptic and something metallic underneath it. The patient was restrained, wrists and ankles secured, but his body was still. Too still. Eyes open, fixed on the door. He didn't react when we entered. I stepped closer, watching his breathing. Normal. Heart rate elevated, but steady. No tremor. No visible seizure activity. I pressed 2 fingers into his forearm. Hard enough to cause pain. Nothing. I increased pressure. Still nothing. Pain response, the nurse asked. Absent, I said. Then I moved my hand. His eyes snapped to it. Not my face. Not my voice. My hand. I moved it again, slower this time. His gaze tracked perfectly. Movement, I said quietly. He responds a movement. The nurse swallowed. That's not. I know. We tested it again. I spoke. No response. I applied pressure. Nothing. I shifted position, changed angles, moved objects in his line of sight. Every time, perfect tracking. Like he's prioritizing it, she said. Like it matters more, I replied. We stepped back into the corridor. Across the hall, a door creaked open. No one had touched it. I turned just in time to see a patient from room 9 standing in the doorway. No chart, no discharge, no escort. Just standing there, head slightly forward, eyes scanning the hallway in slow, deliberate arcs. Sir, you need to return to your room. I called out. No response. He took 1 step into the hall, then stopped. A gurney rattled at the far end, just a nurse moving equipment. The sound echoed more than it should have. The patient's head turned toward it instantly. Then he started walking. Not toward me, toward the sound. Stop him. The nurse said, already moving. We intercepted him halfway. Up close. I could see the same signs, dry lips, flushed skin, that faint delay in his blink. He didn't resist at first. Just stood there, watching the gurney like it was the only thing in the building that mattered. Sir, you need to... He moved. Fast. Not at us. Past us. Straight toward the source of noise. We grabbed him before he could reach the corner. It took effort, more than it should have. But again, no shouting, no panic. Just pressure. Direction. Back to 9. I said. We guided him in, closed the door. It didn't latch. I pushed it again. This time it clicked. I stood there a second longer than necessary, hand still on the handle, listening. Nothing. Back at the station, I pulled every chart I could find that matched the pattern. Room 5, 7, 9, 12, 14. Different nurses. Different intake notes. Same core details. Fever. Delayed response. Selective attention. I wrote the times on a separate sheet. Admission. First symptom. Escalation. They overlapped. Not perfectly. Not enough to trigger an automatic alert, but enough to suggest something moving through the system faster than anyone had reported. Have we called this in? I asked. The nurse shook her head. No directive. From who? She hesitated. Administration. We're supposed to wait for confirmation. Confirmation of what? She didn't answer. Across the station, a monitor flickered. Just for a second. Then again. Did you see that? I asked. Probably a connection issue. Probably, I said, but I was already watching the screen. Patient vitals scrolling. Heart rates. oxygen levels, numbers that were supposed to tell a story. For a moment, one of the lines flattened, then corrected itself. I leaned closer. Which room is that? She checked. 7. I looked down the corridor. The door to room 7 was closed. But I could have sworn, just for a second, I saw the handle move. Not open. Just test. Like something on the other side was learning how it worked. Communication breakdown. The phones didn't fail all at once. They hesitated first. It started with delay. Half a second between dialing and the tone, then a full second, then nothing at all. Calls that should have connected internally just stalled, as if the system was waiting for permission it wasn't going to get. I tried the operator line twice. Both times, the connection dropped before it rang. Switchboard's down. The nurse said, more to herself than to me. It's not down, I replied, holding the receiver to my ear. It's not responding. There's a difference. Overhead paging still worked, but distorted. Words clipped at the edges. Announcements repeating mid-sentence like the system couldn't decide what had already been said. The usual background noise of the hospital. The steady layer of voices, carts, alarms. Thinned out until it felt like we were operating inside a vacuum. How many staff are still on this floor? I asked. She checked the roster. 4, including us. That's not possible. Night shift skeleton, she said. You know how it is. I did. But even a skeleton crew leaves a trace. Movement, noise, presence. This felt like absence. A nurse from the adjacent ward approached, walking faster than necessary. We've got a problem in 12, she said. Patient's not in bed. Discharged. I asked. No paperwork. Transferred. No record. We went together. Room 12 was empty. The bed was unmade. Sheets pulled halfway to floor. For lines still hanging. Fluids dripping onto tile in a slow, steady rhythm. No signs of struggle. No signs of departure. Just gone. When did you last see him? I asked. 10 minutes ago, she said. I checked vitals. He was there. Door closed. Locked. She shook her head. We don't lock from inside. I stepped into the room, scanning corners, checking the bathroom. Nothing. No open windows, no secondary exits. Just one door, leading back into the corridor. Security sweep? I asked. Already called. Did they answer? She hesitated. They didn't pick up. I felt that same recognition again. The system wasn't broken. It was unreachable. We moved back into the hallway. For a moment, everything held still. No footsteps. No voices. Just a faint hum of ventilation, and the distant flicker of a monitor alarm that never resolved. Do you hear that? She asked. I listened. At first, nothing. Then movement. Not loud. Not distinct. Just a shifting sound, like fabric brushing against walls. Footsteps softened by distance. It wasn't coming from one direction. It was everywhere. Patients aren't supposed to be moving without staff, she said. They're not, I replied. We both knew that wasn't true anymore. Back at the station, I pulled up the CCTV feed. It took longer than it should have to load. The system lagged, frames skipping before settling into a grainy, slightly delayed image. Corridor cameras showed empty hallways, doors closed, lights flickering at the edges. Rewind 5 minutes, I said. She did. The footage stuttered, then played. At first, nothing. Then movement. A figure crossing the far end of the corridor. No badge, no uniform. Just a patient gown, moving from one side to the other with steady, unhurried steps. Pause, I said. The image froze. The figure stood mid-frame, head slightly forward, arms relaxed at the sides. No visible urgency. No sign of confusion. Which room is that? I asked. She checked the layout. 9. That's not possible. We just put him back. Play it again. She did. This time, I watched the details. The way the figure moved, not wandering, not searching. Directed, purposeful, as if it already knew where it was going before it started moving. Where does that corridor lead? I asked. Central Junction, she said. Access to all wards. I felt the shift settle fully now. They're not getting lost, I said. What do you mean? They're navigating. The screen flickered again. For a split second, the image distorted. Lines bending, shapes blurring, then snapped back into place. But something had changed. Another figure stood at the far end of the corridor, not moving, just there. Was that there before? She asked. No. We watched. The second figure didn't approach, didn't react. It just stood, facing the camera like it was aware of being observed. Then, slowly it tilted its head. The feed cut to static. Connection lost, the system displayed. No alarm, no warning, just gone. I leaned back, eyes still on the blank screen. Try external line, I said. She picked up the phone, dialed. Nothing. No signal, she said. I looked down the corridor again. The doors were still closed. The lights were still on. But the hospital didn't feel like a place connected to anything anymore. It felt sealed, not by design, by behavior. And whatever was moving through it was no longer waiting to be found. Door seal. The lockdown didn't trigger with an alarm. It happened between one breath and the next. One moment the corridor was open. The next the door at the far end slid shut with a heavy, final sound that didn't belong in a hospital. No announcement followed. No flashing lights. Just a mechanical certainty of something deciding a boundary had been reached. Did you authorize that? I asked. The nurse shook her head immediately. No, that's not ER control. I moved the panel beside the door. Standard override interface. Badge scan, manual release, emergency bypass. I scanned my ID. Access denied. That's not possible, I said. Try again. I did. Same result. No delay, no error code. Just denial. As if the system already knew who I was and had decided it didn't matter. Call maintenance, she said. I can't call anyone. We both knew that answer before I said it. A second door sealed somewhere behind us. Then another, not in sequence, not floor-wide, selective, strategic. They're isolating sections, she whispered. Who is? I didn't answer. I was already checking the map. On the screen, access points began shifting from green to red. Not all at once. Not randomly. Specific corridors, specific junctions. Paths closing in a pattern that didn't match any emergency protocol I'd ever seen. This isn't fire control, I said. It's not contamination lockdown either. What else is there? Nothing official. I tried the emergency override. Manual code entry. The kind you only use when systems fail and people need out. Invalid. That code always works, she said. It should. A metallic sound echoed from the adjacent hallway. Another door sealing. The air pressure shifted slightly, a subtle change you wouldn't notice unless you were listening for it. Listen, she said. I did. Footsteps. Not ours. Multiple. Moving behind the sealed doors. I stepped closer, pressing my hand against the surface. Cold steel, solid, unmoving. The sound on the other side wasn't frantic. No pounding, no shouting. Just movement. Steady, coordinated. They're not trying to get out, I said. She looked at me. Then what are they doing? I didn't answer. Across the station, a monitor flickered again. The system map refreshed, then glitched, then stabilized. More red. Check patient locations, I said. She pulled up the tracking system. RFID tags embedded in wristbands, designed to monitor movement within the hospital. Dots on the screen. Room 5, empty. Room 7, still active. Room 9, moving. That's not right, she said. 9 should be contained. The dot shifted again, crossing a boundary it shouldn't have been able to cross. How is it passing through locked doors? She asked. It's not, I said. Then how? It was already on the other side. The realization settled hard. The system wasn't failing to contain them. It was tracking them too late. Another door sealed, closer this time. The corridor behind us was no longer accessible. The path we'd come through was gone. We're being sectioned off, she said. Yes. By what? I looked at the panel again, at the clean denial message, at the absence of error codes. Not by the system we use, I said. A sudden impact hit the door across from us. Not loud, not violent, just a single measured strike. We both turned. The handle moved. Not opening. Testing. Another impact. Same spot. Same force. They're learning it, she said. I felt my pulse shift, not faster, tighter. Step back, I said. We moved away from the door. The handle turned again, slightly further this time, then stopped. Silence. For a few seconds, nothing happened. No more impacts, no more movement. Then, slowly, the handle returned to its original position, like whatever was on the other side had decided it didn't need to force it. Why stop? She asked. Because it doesn't need this door, I said. The map updated again. More red, fewer green paths. I traced the remaining open routes with my finger. They're not just moving, I said. They're shaping movement. What does that mean? It means we're not choosing where we go anymore. Another appeared on the map, not from a new admission, not from intake, from somewhere internal. A location that hadn't been active before. Where is that? She asked. I zoomed in. Central Junction, the point where all corridors meet. They're gathering, I said. The nurse took a step back, eyes still on the screen. For what? I looked down the hallway ahead of us. One path still open, narrow, indirect, leading away from the main junction. They're not locking us in randomly, I said. They're directing us. Where? I didn't answer immediately, because for the first time since my shift started, the hospital didn't feel like a place we were trapped inside. It felt like something we were being moved through, and whatever was controlling the doors wasn't trying to keep us contained. It was trying to decide where we ended up. They learned fast. The first time I saw them work together, it wasn't dramatic. It was efficient. We moved down the only corridor still open, keeping our steps controlled, minimizing sound. The plan wasn't spoken, but we both understood it. Stay quiet, avoid attention, find a route that hadn't been sealed yet. Halfway down the hall, a metal tray slipped from a cart and hit the floor behind us. The sound carried. Not loud, but enough. We froze. For a second, nothing happened. Then movement. Not from one direction. From multiple. I turned slowly, watching the intersections. Two figures emerged from opposite ends of the corridor. Both wearing patient gowns. Both moving at the same steady pace. No rushing, no hesitation. Just closing distance. They heard that, the nurse whispered. No, I said. They tracked it. The distinction mattered. I picked up a clipboard from the wall and tossed it down the opposite hallway. The sound echoed. Both figures stopped. Then, almost in sync, their heads turned toward the new noise. They adjusted direction immediately. Not confused. Not searching. Redirecting. Go, I said. We moved the other way. Fast but controlled, slipping past the junction before they could reorient again. They're prioritizing sound, she said, breath tight. And movement, I added. They ignore everything else. We turned another corner and nearly ran into one. He was standing in the middle of the corridor, perfectly still, like he had been placed there on purpose. His head was angled slightly downward, eyes unfocused, until we moved. Then they locked onto us instantly. Back, I said. Too late. He stepped forward, not rushing, just positioning himself directly in our path. Side corridor, the nurse said. We pivoted, moving into a narrower hallway that led toward supply rooms. As we turned, I glanced back. The figure didn't chase. He stayed where he was, blocking. They're not pursuing, I said. They're controlling routes. The realization hit harder than anything before it. This wasn't chaos. This was structure. We pushed deeper into the side corridor, the air tighter, the lights dimmer. The path narrowed, forcing us into single file. Behind us, footsteps resumed. Not fast, not frantic, just steady. They're following now, she said. Yes. Why wait? Because now we're where they want us. Ahead, the corridor split again, left toward storage, right toward maintenance access. I stopped. Listen, I said. We both held still. Silence. Then faint movement to the right. Another presence. They're covering both sides, she whispered. I picked up a small metal container from a nearby shelf and threw it hard down the right corridor. The noise echoed sharply. The movement shifted toward it immediately. Left, I said. We moved. This time, faster. The corridor opened slightly, giving us more space, but the sense of control didn't change. Every turn felt predicted. Every movement anticipated. They're learning, she said. They already have, I replied. We reached a junction that should have led back toward a main access point. The door was sealed. Of course it was. I checked the panel out of instinct. Access denied. Behind us. Footsteps again. Closer. I looked around, scanning for options. Up, I said, spotting a stairwell door partially ajar. We slipped inside and pulled it closed behind us. For a moment, the sound cut off. Complete silence. We stood there, breathing controlled, listening. Nothing. They lost us, she said. No, I replied. I stepped closer to the door, placing my hand against it. A second later, something on the other side moved. Not pushing, not striking, just adjusting, like it was aligning itself with where we were. They didn't lose us, I said quietly. They're waiting. The nurse stared at the door, her expression shifting from fear to something else. Understanding. They're not reacting anymore, she said. They're predicting. I nodded. They're mapping the building. Route sounds, responses. And us. Yes. A faint scrape came from the other side of the door. Then another. Not random. Measured. They're testing again, she said. Learning the limits. I stepped back from the door. We can't outpace this, she said. No. Then what do we do? I looked up the stairwell, then back at the door, then at the narrow space we were standing in. For the first time since this started, the problem wasn't how to escape. It was how to think faster than something that was already adapting. They're using the hospital better than we are, I said. The words felt wrong even as I said them, but they were true. And whatever advantage we thought we had was already gone. Small group forms. We stopped running when it became obvious the building was running us. The stairwell gave us a pocket of space. Temporary, narrow, and silent in a way that felt earned rather than empty. I counted breaths before speaking, not because I was winded, but because anything louder than necessary felt like a signal. We don't move alone anymore, I said. The nurse nodded. Who's left? Enough? I replied. If we stop acting like individuals. We opened the door one level up, just enough to check the corridor. No movement, no figures, just dim light and the same controlled, quiet pressing against everything. Quick, I said. We moved. 2 turns, 1 sealed door, 1 open path. We followed it until we reached a supply junction near Central Services, a place that should have been busy even on a thin night. It wasn't. But there were people. 2 nurses first, both still in scrubs, standing near a cart like they'd been waiting for instructions that never came. A technician sat on the floor, beside a panel, tools spread out but untouched. And near the far wall, a janitor leaned against a mop handle, eyes tracking the corridor in slow, careful sweeps. They all looked at us the same way. Relief first, then calculation. You made it through? One of the nurses asked. For now. I said, how many of you? 5, including you, the technician said without looking up. If we count the one still moving as not part of the group. Fair, I replied. The janitor pushed off the wall, stepping closer. They're blocking the main exits, he said, not standing there, just appearing when you get close. They're controlling routes, I said. He nodded once. Figured. Names, I said. If we're doing this, we don't stay anonymous. Lina, the first nurse said. Rafi, the second added. Imran, the technician said, finally standing. Kareem, the janitor said. I gave mine last. It wasn't about introductions. It was about anchoring something human in a place that was starting to strip that away. What do we have? Lina asked. Knowledge, I said. That's more valuable than anything else right now. I pointed to Imran. You understand the systems. Electrical, access panels, partial network, he said. not full control. Good enough, I replied. I nodded toward Kareem. You know the maintenance paths. Every service corridor, most of the hidden access routes, he said. Places staff don't use unless something's broken. Perfect, I said. I looked at the two nurses. You know patient flow ward layouts where people should be. And where they shouldn't, Rafi added quietly. Exactly. For the first time since it started, the situation shifted from reaction to structure, not control, but something close. We stopped thinking like we're trapped, I said. We start thinking like we're navigating. And, Lena asked, they're doing the same thing. I said, just faster. Silence followed that. Not disagreement. Recognition. So what's the plan? Imran asked. I looked at the junction map mounted on the wall. Static, outdated, but still useful. We avoid central corridors, I said. They're converging there. We use service routes, maintenance paths, anything off-grid. Supplies? Rafi asked. Secondary storage. Kareem said immediately. Lower levels. Less traffic. Power? Lena asked. Unstable, Imran said. But I can keep sections running if we move carefully. Then we move carefully, I said. A sound echoed from down the corridor. Not loud. Just enough. Every head turned. Not toward the sound. Toward each other. Waiting. Deciding. No sudden movement, I said. No unnecessary noise. We control what we can. And what we can't. Lena asked. I met her eyes. We don't give it more than it already has. The group tightened, not physically, but in focus. Each person shifted slightly, adjusting position, aligning without needing instruction. Fragile, temporary, but real. For a moment, it felt like we had something. Not safety, not yet, but structure. And in a place that was being reshaped around us, that was the closest thing to control we were going to get. Then the lights flickered. Just once. But this time when they came back, the corridor we had just come through wasn't empty anymore. Someone was standing there, watching. Medical reality. We didn't go looking for answers. We went looking for confirmation. The patient in the observation room was already restrained when we found him. Wrists secured. Ankles locked. Torso strapped tight enough to prevent leverage. Someone had done it properly. Clinically. Without panic. That alone told me this wasn't the first time. Door stays closed, I said. Imran nodded, checking the panel. This one still responds. For now. Good, I replied. Let's use it. The man on the bed didn't move when we entered. His eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling, breathing steady. No visible struggle, no attempt to break restraints. If I had walked in without context, I might have assumed sedation, but his chart said otherwise. Fever, 103.1. Heart rate, elevated, consistent. Blood pressure, stable. Neurological status, unresponsive to standard stimulus. Vitals don't match behavior, Lena said quietly. They match something, I replied. Just not anything we've categorized. I stepped closer, watching for micro movements. There's always something, subtle shift in muscle tone, reflex responses, unconscious adjustments. His chest rose and fell evenly. Too evenly. Pain response. Rafi asked, let's find out. I pressed firmly into his sternum, enough to trigger discomfort in any conscious patient. Nothing. I increased pressure. Still nothing. Try peripheral, Lena suggested. I pinched the nerve between his thumb and forefinger. No reaction. Completely absent, she said. Not completely. I replied. I moved my hand. His eyes followed. Instantly. No delay this time. Again, I said. I shifted position, stepping to the side. His gaze tracked me perfectly. Selective response. Imran said from the panel. Not selective. I corrected. Prioritized. I waved my hand slowly in front of his face. His pupils adjusted. Focus tightened. Visual tracking intact, Lena said. More than intact, I replied. It's dominant. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Can you hear me? No response. Can you understand me? Still nothing. Then I stopped speaking and moved again. His eyes followed, not just tracking, anticipating. I changed direction abruptly. His gaze adjusted before my movement completed. That's not reflex, Rafi said. No, I agreed. It's processing. Silence settled over the room. Not the empty kind, the heavy kind. I reached for the portable EEG unit, mounted beside the bed. Old system, limited resolution, but enough to show baseline activity. Power? I asked. Stable here, Imran said. I attached the leads, watching the screen as it calibrated. The pattern appeared slowly. Irregular, not chaotic. Reduced. Cortical activity is suppressed, I said. Higher functions are diminished. Diminished or gone? Lena asked. I didn't answer immediately, because beneath the suppression, there was something else. Lower brain regions. Active. Consistently active. Limbic system is still firing, I said. Meaning? Rafi asked. Basic drives, I replied. Movement. Response. Recognition. Recognition of what? I looked at the patient, at the way his eyes locked onto movement, ignored voice, ignored pain. Stimulus that matters, I said, which is us. The word sat in the air longer than it should have. That doesn't make sense, Lena said. If higher function is suppressed, they shouldn't. They shouldn't coordinate. I finished. They shouldn't adapt, Imran added. They shouldn't learn, Rafi said. But they were. I leaned closer to the patient again, this time moving slower, deliberately. His eyes followed. Then, for a fraction of a second, they stopped. Not because I stopped moving, because he did. He held his gaze just off my shoulder, like he was looking at something else. I didn't turn. Do you see that? I asked quietly. Yes, Lena said. Don't move, I said. We held still. The patient's eyes shifted again. Back to me. Then something changed. It was small, subtle, but unmistakable. His mouth moved. Not randomly, not reflexively, deliberately. No sound came out. But the shape of it was meaningless. What did he just... Rafi started. Don't, I said sharply, because I already knew what I thought I saw. And I didn't want confirmation. I stepped back, pulling the EEG leads free. This isn't loss of function, I said. Then what is it? Lena asked. I looked at all of them. At the room. At the man on the bed who wasn't reacting to pain, wasn't responding to voice, but was tracking, anticipating, processing. This is reduction, I said. Reduction to what? I hesitated, because the answer wasn't clinical. It wasn't something you'd find in a textbook. It was something older, more basic, everything unnecessary, I said finally. And what's left? Imran asked. I looked back at the patient, at the way his eyes followed the smallest movement, at the way his body stayed still until it needed to act, at the way his mouth had formed something without sound, everything that makes him dangerous. I said. No one spoke after that, because the realization didn't need explanation. They weren't gone. They weren't empty. They were still there, just stripped down, and whatever was left was enough to understand us, maybe even remember us. And that made it worse than anything we had assumed before, because this wasn't death. It was transformation, and it was still thinking, just not the way we did. The locked ward. We found them because they were quiet. Not silent, there's a difference. Silence is empty. This was controlled, suppressed. The kind of quiet that happens when people know noise will get them noticed. Kareem led us through a maintenance corridor that cut behind the main wards, a path staff only used when something broke. The air felt different there, cooler, less circulated, carrying a faint mix of disinfectant and something stale beneath it. This connects to Isolation Wing B, he said. Should be low traffic. Should be, Lena repeated. We reached the access panel. Imran crouched, tools already in hand. Give me 30 seconds, he said. Make it 20, Rafi replied, glancing back down the corridor. Imran worked fast, fingers moving with practiced precision. The panel clicked, hesitated, then unlocked with a soft mechanical release. The door opened, and the quiet changed. Not louder. Closer. We stepped inside. The ward lights were dim, running on reduced power. Doors lined both sides of the corridor, each with a small reinforced window. Most were closed. All of them were occupied. Faces appeared behind the glass. Not all at once. One at a time. Watching. "Doctor?" Someone whispered from inside one of the rooms. I moved closer, careful, controlled. "How many of you are there?" I asked. "8." A man said. "Maybe 9. We lost track." "Lost track how?" "They sealed the doors," he said. "No one came back." "When?" "Hours ago. Maybe more." Time had already started slipping. "Any symptoms?" I asked. He shook his head. "We're not like them." "Anyone showing fever? Delayed response? Aggression?" "No." I looked at the others behind the glass. Pale, tired but aware. Eyes tracking normally. Movements uncoordinated in the way of people who were scared, not controlled. "They're clean," Lena said quietly. "For now," Rafi added. A woman stepped closer to the glass. "Please," she said. "We heard them outside. They're moving past the doors. We can't stay here." Her voice was steady, but it cost her something to keep it that way. I checked the door controls. Same system. Same override panel. Same denial. "Imran," I said. He was already working. "Different lock sequence," he muttered. "Not standard. Can you open it?" "Maybe, but it won't be quiet." "How loud?" Rafi asked. "Loud enough." Silence settled over the group. Not empty. Heavy. "If we open this," Lena said, "we draw attention." "If we don't," Kareem added, "they die in here." "Not immediately," Rafi said. "They have time." "How much?" Lena asked. No one answered, because we didn't know, and not knowing made it worse. "We can move them through maintenance," I said. "Quiet routes. Controlled movement." 8 people, Rafi replied. "That's not controlled. That's a signal." "They're already a signal," Lena said. "If they make noise later, it's worse." "They're quiet now," Rafi countered. "That's the only advantage they have." "And we take that away by opening the doors," Kareem said. The man inside the room pressed his hand against the glass. "You're not seriously considering leaving us here," he said. No one answered him directly, because we were. "We have to think about the group," Rafi said. "Not just them." "They are the group," Lena snapped. "Not yet. They will be if we let them in. And if one of them is infected and we don't know it," he shot back. "They're not showing symptoms. Yet." The word hung there. Heavy. Final. I looked at the faces behind the glass again. Fear. Hope. Waiting. They weren't moving much. Not pacing, not shouting. Just watching us, like we were the decision that determined whether they existed beyond this corridor. "They're already contained," Rafi said. "That's not nothing." "That's a delay," Lena replied. "It's a controlled delay. It's a death sentence." The woman at the door spoke again, softer this time. "We can be quiet," she said. "We won't slow you down." That wasn't the problem. I stepped closer to the panel, watching Imran work. "How long?" I asked. 10 seconds once I start," he said. "No going back." I nodded. Behind us, somewhere deeper in the hospital, a sound echoed. Not loud, but enough. Every head turned, not toward the sound, toward the doors, toward the decision. "They're getting closer," Kareem said. "Or we're getting louder," Rafi replied. I placed my hand on the panel, felt the vibration of the system beneath it. Alive, active, watching. "We don't get a clean choice," I said. "No," Lena agreed. "We don't." I looked at the group, at the patients, at the corridor that would carry whatever decision we made into consequences we couldn't predict. Then I made it. "Open one door," I said. "Test it." Rafi closed his eyes for a second. Kareem nodded once. Lena didn't hesitate. Imran looked at me. "Say when." I took one last look at the faces behind the glass, then back at the corridor behind us. Still empty. "For now." "Now," I said. The decision. The lock released with a sound that felt louder than it was. A single click. Clean. Final. Everyone in the corridor heard it, even the ones trying not to. Slow, I said, keeping my voice low. No sudden movement. One at a time. The door opened inward. The man stepped out first, careful, controlled, like he understood exactly how thin the margin was. The others followed behind him, moving with the same restrained urgency. No one spoke. No one rushed. It was the kind of discipline people find when fear has already taught them the cost of noise. Stay close, Lena whispered. Follow our pace. We reformed the group quickly. What had been 5 became 13. Too many. I felt it immediately, not physically, but structurally. More movement, more breath, more variables. Route. Kareem asked. Maintenance corridor, then down 2 levels. I said. Avoid Central Junction. Imran nodded. Panels won't hold if we linger. Then we don't linger. We moved. The first stretch held. Steps controlled. Spacing tight. No unnecessary contact with walls or equipment. For a moment, it almost felt possible, like we had made the right call, like the system hadn't adjusted yet. Then someone stumbled. It was small. A foot catching the edge of a loose tile. The sound barely registered, but it was enough. We froze. Too late. From somewhere behind us, movement answered. Not loud, not chaotic. Directed. They heard that. Rafi said under his breath. They always do, I replied. Keep moving, Lena urged. We picked up pace, not running, but faster than before. The corridor narrowed, forcing us into tighter formation. Breath grew heavier. Control started slipping. Left turn ahead, Kareem said. We took it and ran into them. 2 figures, already positioned, standing at the junction like they had been waiting. They're blocking again, Imran said. No, I said. They predicted. The figures didn't charge. They stepped forward just enough to close the space. Back, I said immediately. We pivoted, reversing direction, but the delay had cost us. More movement behind. Another group approaching. Not chasing. Closing. They're hurting us, Lena said. Yes. Where? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Side access, Kareem said, pointing to a narrow service door. Go, I said. We pushed through, compressing into smaller space. The door closed behind us, but it wasn't sealed. Just a barrier. Temporary. Keep going, I said. The passage sloped downward, tighter, darker. The group stretched unevenly now. Some moving faster, others struggling to keep up. Stay together, Rafi said. No gaps. A sharp sound cut through the corridor. A cry. I turned. One of the patients, young mid-20s, had fallen. Not from a floor this time. From contact. One of them had reached through the doorway before it closed. A hand. Fast. Precise. It had caught his arm. Left a mark. Not deep, but enough. Get him up, Lena said, already moving. We pulled him to his feet, pushing forward again. Did it break skin? I asked. He didn't answer. He was staring at his arm, at the thin line where skin had opened. Answer me, I said. Yes, he said. The word barely came out. The corridor didn't stop. The group didn't stop. But something else did. Trust. We don't know if that's enough, Lena said quickly. We don't know that it isn't, Rafi replied. Not now, I cut in. We move first. But we need to. We move, I repeated. No one argued, because movement was the only thing keeping us ahead. For now, we reached the lower level access point, a heavier door, reinforced, still partially functional. Imran worked the panel. Faster, Kareem said. I am, Imran snapped. Behind us, the sound returned. Closer, more of them now. Not rushing, just arriving. The door clicked. We pushed through, sealed it behind us. Silence followed. Not safety, just distance. I turned to the group. 13 people. Now one variable more dangerous than anything outside. The young man leaned against the wall, breathing unevenly, eyes fixed on the mark on his arm. No one stepped closer to him, not even Lena. We need to monitor him, she said. From a distance, Rafi added. The words came too easily. Too quickly. I looked at all of them, at the space that had formed around him, at the way everyone adjusted without being told. This was a math, not theoretical, not distant, immediate. We had gained 8 people and lost something else in the process. Control, certainty, trust, and whatever came next would be decided by that one small line on his skin. Hidden areas. The lower levels felt older than the hospital above them, not just in design, though the concrete was rougher, the ceilings lower, the lighting harsher, but in purpose. These weren't spaces meant for people. They were built for systems, for movement that wasn't seen, for functions that didn't need witnesses. Most staff don't even know these exist, Kareem said, leading us through a narrow passage that angled downward. Feels like they were designed that way, Lena replied. Less traffic, fewer questions, Imran added. I didn't respond, because the quiet here wasn't the same as above. Up there, the silence felt controlled. Down here, it felt preserved. We moved in a tighter formation now. The group had adjusted after what happened upstairs. No one strayed. No one spoke unless necessary. Even breathing felt measured. The injured man stayed at the back, not by instruction, by distance. Vitals, I asked without turning. Stable, Lena said. No fever yet. Keep checking. She nodded, though I didn't need to see it. We reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 narrower paths. No signage. No clear indication of where each led. Left goes to old storage, Kareem said. Right connects to utility shafts. Middle, I'm not sure. Then we don't take the middle, Rafi said. Kareem hesitated. The middle might be the fastest route. Or the worst, Rafi replied. I looked at the layout etched into Kareem's memory, not the walls. Left, I said. We need space more than speed. We turned. The corridor widened slightly, enough to breathe without brushing against the walls. Old storage units lined the sides, metal doors, some sealed, some slightly ajar. Check supplies, Lena said. Quietly, I added. We moved room to room, scanning quickly. Most were empty. Some held outdated equipment, expired materials, things no one had bothered to remove. Then we found one that wasn't. The door was already open. Inside, shelves were stocked. Not full, but not abandoned either. Recent, Imran said, stepping closer. This hasn't been here long. Who stocked it? Rafi asked. No one answered, because the question didn't have a good answer. I picked up a box, medical supplies sealed, labeled with a date that didn't match the rest of the room. 2 days ago. That's not possible, Lena said, reading over my shoulder. It is, I replied. We're looking at it. Why would anyone bring supplies down here? She asked. To keep them separate, Imran said. From the main system. From what? Rafi asked. Again, no one answered, because we were starting to see it. This wasn't just overflow. This was preparation. We moved deeper. The air shifted again. Cooler, heavier, carrying a faint mechanical hum that didn't match anything we'd heard above. Power source. I asked. Maybe, Imran said, or something drawing power. We followed the sound. It led us to a reinforced door at the end of the corridor. Not like the others. Thicker. Secured differently. This isn't standard, Kareem said. No, I agreed. It isn't. The panel beside it was active. Barely. Imran crouched, examining it. This isn't hospital network, he said. Separate system. Can you open it? I asked. He hesitated. Yes, he said finally. But I don't know what's on the other side. That makes 2 of us, Rafi muttered. I looked back at the group, at the way they were watching the door. Not afraid. Expecting. Open it, I said. Imran worked the panel. Slower this time. More careful. The lock disengaged with a low, mechanical release. The door opened inward, and the air changed. Not colder. Cleaner. Filtered. We stepped inside. The room beyond wasn't storage. It was operational. Screens lined one wall, dark, but not dead. Equipment arranged in a way that suggested use, not abandonment. Cables running along the floor, connected to systems that didn't appear anywhere on the main hospital grid. What is this? Lena asked. A separate control node. Imran said, moving toward the consoles. Independent. For what? Rafi asked. I stepped closer to one of the terminals. It flickered as I approached, then activated. A map appeared, not of the entire hospital, just sections, specific ones. Highlighted, ER, Isolation Wing, Central Junction, the same areas we had seen affected first. This wasn't reacting, I said. It was running, Imran added. Before we even knew something was wrong, Lena said. I scrolled through the data, logs, timestamps, activity records, the earliest entry, hours before the first patient arrived. I felt the shift settle fully now. Not suspicion. Confirmation. This didn't start outside, I said. Rafi looked at me. Then where? I turned slightly, scanning the room again, at the systems, at the map, at the structure that had been guiding movement long before we noticed it. Here, I said. The word didn't echo, but it stayed, because the hospital wasn't just containing the outbreak. It had been part of it from the beginning, and whatever we were dealing with had already been inside. System failure. The lights didn't go out everywhere. They failed in pieces. One corridor dimmed while another flared too bright, like the building couldn't decide which parts of itself to keep alive. The hum we'd been following under the floor stuttered, surged, then dipped again, and the screens in control room flickered as if someone was pulling power in uneven bursts. That's not random, Imran said, already moving between panels. Load is shifting. From where to where? Lena asked. Not sure yet, he replied, but something's drawing more than it should. The overhead lights cut to half intensity. Shadows stretched longer. Edges softened. For a moment, the room felt deeper than it was. We don't stay here, Rafi said. If this fails, we're blind. We already are, Kareem added quietly. A sharp click echoed through the room. Then another. Relays. Switching. The map on the screen refreshed. More sections went dark. Not offline. Hidden. They're taking control of visibility. I said. Imran glanced up. You're saying this is deliberate? I'm saying it's consistent. The air shifted again. Cooling systems adjusting, vents redirecting flow. The same pattern we'd seen with the doors. Not a collapse. A reconfiguration. We need light, Lena said. We need predictability. I replied. Good luck, Rafi muttered. Another flicker. This time longer. The room dipped into near darkness for 2 full seconds before the emergency strips along the floor activated. Low, red, and barely enough to define space. Backup grids kicking in, Imran said, but not evenly. Meaning? Kareem asked. Meaning some areas will have power, others won't, and it won't stay consistent. Like everything else, Rafi said. A sound carried through the doorway. Soft, measured, footsteps. Not many. Enough. They're close, Lena said. How? Kareem asked. We sealed the path. I looked at the door, at the edges where light leaked through. They didn't follow us here, I said. Then how? They were already moving through other routes. The realization tightened the room further. They're not chasing, Lena said. No, I replied. They're positioning. The lights flickered again. This time, when they came back, the doorway wasn't empty. A figure stood just outside the threshold, not entering, not advancing, just there, watching. Don't move, I said quietly. No one did. The figure's head tilted slightly, eyes adjusting to the dim red light. Then it stepped back, out of view. Why leave? Rafi whispered. Because it doesn't need to be seen, I said. The overhead lights cut out completely. The room dropped into red. Shapes flattened. Depth disappeared. Imran, I said, can you stabilize anything? I can try, he replied, already working. But the system's not responding like it should. Because it's not responding to us, Kareem said. The footsteps returned. Closer. Then another set. From a different direction. They're using the dark, Lena said. And the sound, I added, were louder now. Even breathing felt amplified in the reduced light. Every shift of weight, every small movement, a signal. We need to move, Rafi said. Where? Lena asked. Anywhere with more control than this. I looked at the map again. At the sections, still lit. Few. Unstable. But present. There, I said, pointing. Maintenance hub. Independent power line. Can we reach it? Kareem asked. Only one path left open. Imran said, scanning the routes. Then that's the path, I replied. Another flicker. Longer this time. When the lights came back, two figures stood in the doorway, not rushing, not reacting, just standing, blocking. They're closing in, Lena said. No, I replied. They're closing the options. The figures stepped forward, slow, measured. We moved back, not running, not yet, because running would give them what they wanted. Sound, direction, information. Stay together, I said. No sudden movement. We edged toward the secondary exit. The room felt smaller now. Not physically, functionally. Every path narrowing. Every choice reducing. Imran reached the panel by the side door. Give me 5 seconds, he said. You have 3, Rafi replied. The figures advanced another step. Still no sound. Still no rush. Just presence. Imran worked faster. The lock clicked. We moved. Through the door. Into another corridor. This one darker. Less stable. Behind us, the control room faded into red and shadow. The system didn't just fail. It shifted. And whatever had taken control of it was using every part of the environment we relied on. Light, sound, space, all of it, against us. And for the first time since it started, it felt like we weren't losing control. It felt like control had already been reassigned. We just hadn't accepted. Not all of us are clean. We noticed in the silence first. Not the building's silence. Theirs. Ours. The way conversation thinned out after we moved through the dark corridor. The way spacing changed without anyone saying it out loud. We were still together. Still moving as a group. But something had shifted in how close we allowed ourselves to be. I didn't have to ask who it was. I already knew. He was still at the back. The same distance he had kept since the contact. Not forced. Chosen. Stop, I said quietly. The group slowed, then halted in the narrow corridor. Emergency lights flickered overhead, barely holding steady. Check him, Lena said, already turning. He didn't resist when she approached. Didn't step back. Didn't step forward. Just stood there. What's your name? I asked. He blinked. Once. Twice. Arif, he said. The delay was small, but it was there. Temperature? Lena said. Rafi handed her the scanner. She moved it across his forehead, paused, checked again. 99.8, she said. Not enough, Rafi replied quickly. Not yet, I said. Arif's eyes shifted between us. Not tracking movement like the others had, but not holding focus either. Like something inside him was deciding what mattered. Any pain? I asked. He shook his head. Headache? Nausea? No. His voice was steady. Too steady. How do you feel? Lena asked. He hesitated. I'm fine, he said. The word didn't land right. Not because of what he said. Because of how long it took to say it. Rafi stepped closer, then stopped halfway. That delay, he said quietly. I see it, I replied. No, he said. It's increasing. We watched. Not openly, but we watched. Arif shifted his weight slightly. A normal movement, except it came a fraction too late, like his body was catching up to something already decided. We need to isolate him, Rafi said. Not yet, Lena replied. Then when we know. We already know, he said. No, I said, we suspect. That's enough, Rafi snapped. You saw what happened upstairs. I saw a mark, I said, not a transformation. And you saw what comes after. Silence pressing again. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right either. Not yet. Arif, I said, keeping my voice level. I need you to follow simple instructions. He nodded, a second too late. Raise your right hand. He did. Clean. Controlled. Lower it. He lowered it. No issue. walk forward 3 steps. He stepped. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Stop. He stopped. No hesitation. Turn around. He turned, then paused. Not because I told him to, because something else caught his attention. What is it? Lena asked. Arif didn't answer. His head tilted slightly toward the corridor behind us. No sound, no movement, but his focus shifted, like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. Arif, I said. No response. Arif. His eyes flicked back to me. For a moment, they looked normal. Then something underneath changed. Not visible, but present. A tightening, a narrowing, like his attention had been redirected, and he didn't fully control where it landed. Step back, Rafi said. No one moved. Not yet, because moving would confirm it. And none of us were ready for that. Arif. I said again, softer this time. He blinked, slow, then nodded. I'm okay, he said. The words came out clean, but the timing didn't, and now everyone could see it. Distance, Kareem said quietly. Not a suggestion, an adjustment. The group shifted. Subtle, controlled, but real, Arif noticed. Of course he did. His eyes moved between us, tracking the change, understanding it. Don't do that, he said. There was something in his voice now, not aggression, not yet, but something else. Awareness. We're just being careful, Lena said. With me, he replied. No one answered, because that was the truth. And saying out loud would make it final. I stepped slightly forward, not close enough to break distance, but enough to hold position. We're still moving together, I said. For now, Rafi added under his breath. Arif heard it. His expression didn't change, but something behind it did. A shift, small, but irreversible. We don't have time for this, Kareem said. We either move or we don't. We move, I said. No one argued, because stopping here was an option. Not with the building closing around us, not with the system already against us. But as we started moving again, no one walked beside Arif, and no one had to say why. The infection wasn't outside anymore. It was inside the group, and that changed everything. Because now, every decision wasn't just about survival. It was about who. The last route, the map, didn't give us hope. It gave us a direction. Imran stabilized a fragment of the system just long enough to isolate one remaining access line, thin, inconsistent, but still open. It led to the ambulance bay on the ground level. External access. Manual doors. No internal override required. Not controlled by the main system, he said. If anything still opens outward, it's that. How far? Lena asked. 3 levels up, through central intersection. Silence followed, because we all knew what that meant. That's where they're densest, Rafi said. Yes, I replied, and we're suggesting we go through it. No, I said, we're acknowledging that we don't have another option. Kareem studied the layout, tracing routes in his head. There are service ladders that bypass parts of it, he said. Not all. How much exposure? Lena asked. Enough, he answered. I looked at the group, at the spacing, at Arif, still at the back, still moving with us, but no longer part of us. We move fast, I said, but not loud. No unnecessary contact. No hesitation. And if they're already there? Rafi asked. They are, I said. No one argued, because the pattern had already proven itself. We moved, up 1 level first, maintenance ladder, narrow, vertical, forcing us into single file. Every movement echoed slightly against the metal, controlled but unavoidable. At the top, Kareem opened the hatch slowly, paused, listened. Nothing immediate. We emerged into a service corridor that ran parallel to the central intersection. This is as far as we stay off-grid, he said. Then we prepare. I replied. I picked up a loose piece of metal from the floor, held it, felt the weight. Sound. I said. We use it before they do. Rafi nodded. Diversion? Not once, I said. Repeated. To pull them off path, Lena added. And keep them off. I finished. Arif watched. Said nothing. but his eyes followed the metal in my hand with that same precise focus we had seen before. I threw it down the far end of the corridor. It struck the wall, echoed sharply, then settled. We waited. Movement answered. Not immediate, but certain. Figures shifting toward the sound. Now, I said. We moved in the opposite direction, slipping toward the central intersection. The air changed as we approached. Warmer, heavier, carrying something beneath the usual hospital scent. Not decay. Not yet, but something close. Stay tight, Lena said. We reached the edge of the intersection and stopped. They were already there, more than before, not clustered, distributed, standing in positions that didn't block everything. Just enough. They're leaving gaps, Kareem said. Control gaps, I replied. So we choose one, Rafi said. No, I said, we make one. I picked up another object, threw it hard across the intersection. The sound echoed, sharp, clear, heads turned, bodies shifted, paths adjusted. Left side, I said, now. We moved, fast, not running, but faster than before, through the opening they hadn't intended for US. For a moment, it worked. We crossed half the distance. Then one of them turned early. Too early. It stepped into our path. Keep going, I said. We didn't stop. We adjusted, slipped past, close, too close. I felt the air shift as it moved beside me. Then another, from the opposite side, the pattern collapsing. They're correcting, Lena said. Then we move faster, I replied. The group stretched again, formation breaking under pressure. Stay together, Rafi called. A hand reached out, missed. Another, closer. Don't react, I said. Keep direction. We pushed through the final stretch. The ambulance bay door came into view. Large, reinforced, manual control panel beside it. Imran broke ahead. Cover him, Lena said. We position around him, not to fight, to delay. The figures closed in, not rushing, just narrowing space. Imran worked the panel. Come on, he muttered. The system hesitated, then responded. The door shuttered. Once, twice, faster, Rafi said. I'm trying. Behind us, movement tightened. Closer now. Too close. I picked up another object, threw it behind them. The sound echoed. Some turned. Not all. They're not fully reacting anymore, Lena said. They don't need to, I replied. The door began to lift. Slow. Too slow. Almost, Imran said. Not fast enough, Kareem replied. A figure stepped into the opening, blocking, not attacking. Just there. I moved, not toward it, past it, close enough to feel the shift of air again. The rest followed, one by one, through the narrowing gap. Arif hesitated for a fraction of a second, then moved. The door lifted just enough. We slipped through, falling into the space beyond. The door slammed behind us. Silence. For the first time in hours, real silence. I turned, looked at the group, counted, all present, but not unchanged, because whatever we had just crossed wasn't just distance. It was a line, and we had no idea what we had carried across it with us. Final log. I'm recording this from the ambulance bay, or what's left of it. The doors are behind us now. Closed. Not by command, not by failure, by decision. I don't think the hospital lost control. I think it handed it over, piece by piece, until something else understood it better than we ever did. We made it out of the main structure, but that doesn't feel like escape. It feels like relocation. The same systems are still running somewhere behind those walls. The same patterns, the same logic. They didn't just react to us. They adapted, learned the layout, learned the responses, learned the limits, and then they stopped testing them. They started using them. I keep thinking about the first door that sealed. How quiet it was. How final it sounded without needing to announce anything. That wasn't containment. That was selection. We weren't locked in. We were directed. If anyone finds this, don't assume the danger is outside the doors. That's the mistake we made. The hospital isn't broken. It's functioning. Just not for us anymore.